Good evening. I'm Socrates Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. We believe Digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. On We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again.
The movement involved some great and courageous people. Aaron Henry, Fannie Lou Hamer, so many people who every day took their lives in their hands to make Mississippi a better place. But they had to have lawyers likewise.
The changing of a society is a process that's glacial, whether we like it or not. Changing people's minds is an enormous undertaking.
Mississippi. It was the worst of the closed society.
There were so many things going on in Mississippi that were bad. If you could have seen the way black people were treated, it was just horrendous.
Our society is one based on the rule of law. That's how it's done in America. Lawyers were a helping role and a necessary role.
The primary responsibility of the national government was to protect fundamental rights, the rights of freedom and equality of the black people. And the national government wasn't moving.
Lawyers put real lives on the line.
I remember he was handling one case. He had received a telephone call saying, if you show up for court, we will kill you.
We must come to grips with the fact that while we are engaged in a battle to get an ultimate goal, it will take generations to do it.
Good evening, and welcome to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the deep, deep South. We're broadcasting in a state that is the poorest in the nation. It has the highest African-American population of any other state in America. And you can imagine that poverty and poor health are primary issues that we fight every day here in Mississippi. There's so much going on in the country today. So many things that we should be celebrating, that we should be proud of. How do we bring our races together? How can Mississippi lead? When will Mississippi understand that it's its diversity that is its strength, not its liability? The mere fact that we're last in every category that means anything should demonstrate to those of us in Mississippi that we must change, that we cannot continually doing the same things that we've always done and expects different results. You know, I thought that the old adage was that if we will just live long enough, that the old races would just die out and everything would be all right. That the young generation would be more amenable to equality and first-class citizenship for all. Unfortunately, that's not the case. In many ways, I think that we were less racist 20 years ago than we are today. Systemic racism abounds in Mississippi and the South. It's so pervasive until in Jackson, Mississippi, we don't have an African-American business class that's representative of the population. We're 40+% of the population, and we get less than 2% of contracts for goods and services. We're in trouble down in the South. We're especially in trouble in Mississippi. And we need new leaders. You know, in times like these, leadership must emerge, must return from your comfort zone, where many of our leaders have abandoned those in the inner city and moved to the suburbs where life is good. There's low crime and few potholes. But when African Americans abandon their race and leave the majority of their race in an urban ghetto inside of man-made fences, which are now constructed with highways that bypass the city. When African Americans abandon their race, the future is terminated for the race. We must get back to an inclusive position in our communities where we focus on reuniting and being supportive of one another and understanding the value, how we're tied together and how together we win and divided we continue to succumb to being relegated to an unworthy neighbor, an undesirable human being that's not cared for anywhere in the world. We can solve these problems, but we got to be honest with ourselves. being honest with ourselves, we got to deal with why we don't support one another and what makes us hate one another. Now, as always, we're broadcasting live on Facebook, Roku TV, YouTube, and our own We Believe digital platform. We're broadcasting all over the world live. I hope this message resonates with just one or two real leaders out there in the world that says that I understand what he's saying and I can make a difference. I think I will help. I think I will give them a call at 800-492-5186 and pledge support for this program. One or two leaders is all that it's going to take. Committed leaders, though. You can't march into Mississippi being half committed. Don't you get run out of here. You got to be seriously committed. Now, we're going to talk about some solutions and some other things on how we're going to turn this thing around. But as always, my guest, Dr. Eldrige Henderson, is here with us tonight. And Dr. Henderson, it's always good to have you in the studio, and I especially want you to recant for us Black history in America. Since CRT is getting so much discussion, took up a large part of the questions of the new Supreme Court nominee. They hammered her on critical race theory. What is CRT and what is the African American experience in America?
Well, the answer is very clear and simple. CRT is one of the most divisive concepts that white folks don't want to address, then having themselves prepared to go to heaven. They'd rather die and go to heaven or hell versus discuss critical race theory in the churches and their training institutions. And I don't blame them. Who do you think want to talk about institutional and systemic racism from 1554 in America to today, where the Americans, and I'm talking about the European Americans, have demonstrated in all of their institutions on the local, state, and federal levels that they are anti-black, anti-minority, and they were so strong with it, they put it in all of their local, state, and federal constitutions, that these documents are for white Americans, males with property, and at that time, black people were not even considered human beings in America. And these people are so racist and inclusive until they excluded their mothers and their grandmothers and daughters from this potential prosperity in America. And that's why they don't want to talk about critical race theory, where their children and grandchildren will know that they have destroyed millions of people deliberately and had the forces of law behind them, the court system, the military, and the modern day police. So they are going strong, stronger than ever before. That's the history of CRT, critical race theory. It is critical, and I don't blame white folks. They don't want to hear it. I wouldn't either if I had a history like that. I wouldn't want black folks to know anything about it.
But black folks know about it.
They know about it, and they're doing their best to pass laws, even where it doesn't exist, so they won't teach it in the public schools. Because in the black public schools, they're going to have a curriculum set where black folks are not going to teach anything other than what they are told. And that's why I've been telling you and others for years, the new education and training institutions must be the church in the future. Because if we don't get new training institutions in the church, black folks are definitely doomed, and even the Constitution will not help them, because it never has.
Well, let's talk about black history in Mississippi. You know, black history in Mississippi, where slaves were brought into Mississippi, the hundreds of thousands. At one time, there were more African Americans in Mississippi than there were any other race, inclusive of Europeans or Caucasians. There were more black folk in Mississippi than anywhere else, and Mississippi was the Wall Street of America. Most of the wealth was right here in Mississippi. Is that history that they don't want taught?
They do not want that taught. They don't want their children to understand that my great-grandfather had the ability to have 400 non-humans on his farm as slaves. He beat them, abused them, raped them, hanged them, and did everything he could, just like he would do it to his horse and his favorite hound dog that he had on a string to go and catch the few slaves that had enough guts to run away. Because those people, a lot of them are still alive. I know a lot of them that promoted those kind of activities, and I'm still alive. And you imagine a young person now that has a decent job, has a family, and his grandfather, his great-grandfather, were major church leaders in Mississippi, major politicians, major captains of industry, and they were doing all those things.
Wow.
And it was legal to do it.
Wow. We're going to deal with Mississippi history because Mississippi history is African-American history. All over this country, the same thing was going on at the same time. We're going to take a station break, and we'll be right back.
Socrates Garrett, ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett, ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.DOT grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using Socrates Garrett, ENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Advertise on WeBelieve.global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.global or call 800-492-5186, option 1.
Now we're back. We've been talking about critical race theory and as it applies to Mississippi, and we're going to continue to talk about that from time to time because it's critically important that if history, black history, isn't taught in our schools and isn't taught in our churches, where are children going to learn about their history? And not only about the suffering and the pain of slavery, but the brilliance of our ancestors, whom we know created civilization. Who's going to teach that part of our history, that Adam, born in the Garden of Eden, is in Africa? Who is going to teach that all races emanate from the black experience, the black man, the black culture? Who is going to teach that history if we don't teach it? Then our children will never have any self-esteem or any value for themselves, and they won't have any value for others, and that leads to tremendous high crime that we have all over the South and all over America. Dr. Henderson, the importance of the church in this struggle to teach and correct the areas that we have been suffering in, how important is the church?
That is very important. It's most important, but what you have to understand, Mr. Socrates, is that we're going to have to look at the church and discover what the problems are that's keeping them from doing what they are doing or supposed to do. It's a very hot topic to say. One of the major problems in the church is that the church promoted, supported, and endorsed integration in America, during Reconstruction and after slavery, up until today. The other thing the churches have done, and still are doing it, they don't have a lot of teaching about moral standards among black people. They allow and encourage black people to do anything they want. They support killing their children before they are born. Most of these churches, they have no standard about these dysfunctional families. They don't talk about those kind of things. They don't have the economic will to look out for themselves when they have more money in America than the nation of Canada. Right now, if you look at the research, black people in America have almost $60 billion of money they can spend on anything they want. $6 billion. 60 billion now with a zero. 60 billion. And they own nothing significantly that's economically worthwhile. No major hotels. No major shopping centers. No major golf courses. No major bus lines. No major industrial complexes. No major car dealerships. Nothing of any significance. There are only a few companies, black companies, in America that can generate over $4 million profit in any given year. Only a handful. All the others that are producing are usually one or two family-owned businesses. And when that father dies, or that uncle that has that business is probably going to die. But if the churches would organize and pool their resources and train the new leaders in business, politics, and civic, the civic leaders, this can start changing.
The church can have that kind of impact.
It used to have that kind of impact. That's where the black leaders came from. During slavery, during Reconstruction, and after slavery, 90% of the black leaders came from the church. They were trained in the church.
Well, why do we have so many churches? We have more churches and liquor stores than we have anything else in the South.
Well, the thing is, to be frank, that's where the money is.
Oh, it's kind of like, why do you rob the bank?
That's exactly right. You want to go where the money is.
Got to go where the money is.
And you have found, sir, that there's something that Americans, black, been taught, and many others, that if you have hard times, you need to pray and ask the Lord to help you. And if you have hard times and you pray a lot, you're going to have some physical discomfort. Something is going to start hurting. Your head, your eyes, something. And that's a sign that you're being approached by the Lord, telling you you need to go and start preaching. Because I'm calling you right now.
So religion has been both a benefit to the black community, and it also has held the black community down.
Exactly right. I call it a benefit and a curse, religion. Because the black people, as you know, were never taught the Bible as it was written. They had their new information from their bosses, which were the white landowners, and they taught them and found the best black person to be the representative of his clan, and that's who they gave that ministerial job to. And that was usually a house Negro, usually.
So where did the Bible come from?
Well, the Bible was created during, I would say, 6 or 10 generations ago. If you look at the history of the Bible, you can find the commandments, the virgin birth, and almost any series or parable in the Bible in ancient documents that were researched and found in Africa 5 or 10 generations ago. So the Bible is a man-made document where the leaders got together and took pieces of information from old ancient documents and put it together and called it the Bible. The New King James Version is even worse than that. So it's just a man-made piecemeal document. That's all the Bible is.
What role did King James play?
Well, you know, King James had a few problems with his wives, and he was a member of the Church of England, and he wanted a divorce. Basically, he said, I can't divorce this wife. She won't have me a son. I can't do it. He might have been to blame himself. And he broke away and created his own Bible. He hired a lot of specialists, priests, other leaders, and they gathered documents and old versions of papers that were written by people that were alive during the time of Jesus. And they found documents everywhere, and they grabbed what they considered the best, edited them, revised them, and put it into what they call the King James Bible. And those interpretations are still with you all today. And most people believe that propaganda because it's man-made. Anytime something is revised, that means it has been changed by man. It is his interpretation, not the original interpretation.
So that's how Jesus became blonde with blue eyes.
Exactly right, because the Bible says Jesus is not a blonde, blue-eyed person. And if you look at the old ancient documents, you will find that they had a lot of people that represented what we call our Jesus. They had different names back in those times. But many of those other people that were leaders were born by virgins. They had the Holy Spirit. They were able to heal people. They were able to kill people and do whatever they wanted to do. And they were kings and queens. And they gave themselves the power to become the ruler. Absolute ruler. Absolute. And one of them is alive today, and one of the strongest men in the world, and one of the most dangerous men, and that's Putin. He is one of those guys that thinks he is superior, that his word ought to be the one that people follow. And he says, if you don't follow me, I'm the chosen one, I'm going to put a whipping on you that you can't stand.
Who?
By himself. That's the way these religious leaders, these political leaders are.
I didn't think that they had Christianity in Russia.
They don't have it. You don't have to have Christianity to declare yourself a leader and a ruler. You get the economic resources together, and you get the military behind you, and the industrial kingpins, and you put them in positions where they can take some of their money from the citizens and give them good jobs, and they'll support you even if you kill your mother.
How will Putin be remembered in history?
Well, it all depends on who writes the history. If the Russians write it, he's going to be like Stalin and some of the others. But if it's written by Americans, he's going to be a strong-handed man. He's going to be one that had good leadership skills. He's going to be looked at as a highly organized person. And he also would be considered one that is focused. That's going to be about 90% of his life. And this little mess that's happening in Ukraine would be probably about 2 or 3 paragraphs, just like the contributions of black people in America.
Hold your point, Doc. You know, we're broadcasting live right here in Jackson, Mississippi. We want to bring you thought-provoking discussions and conversations to make you wake up. You know, the black community is asleep. You know, we are just a sleeping giant that have so many opportunities to do some significant things, to really be the master of our own faith and to control our destination. We really have the tools and the opportunity to do that. but we're letting it slip away from us. And so these discussions are designed to wake the black community up. Wherever you are, black man, black woman, you have a responsibility to try to bring about a change that ensures the future of your children. You have a chance, an opportunity to stand up for what's right and to speak out against the things that are continually tearing our race down and keeping us in poverty and in poor health, with diabetes and heart pressure and heart attack problems, which contributes to all kinds of things, and financial insecurity, which is the number one cause of divorce, which breaks the family structure. A broken family structure will not allow you to build a strong race. Black people, we have an opportunity. We must grab it now. We must do it now. Time is running out. Now, we're going to get ready to go to a commercial break in a few seconds, but we want you to call in at 800-492-5186. 800-492-5186. We'll be right back.
S2-E20 is paving the way forward for a safer city government delivering cutting-edge biosecurity and biosafety protocols developed internationally by top virologists and scientists using an all-natural cleaning solution, killing COVID-19 on contact like no other product on the international market. For more information, please call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com. Let SGECOVIDsolutions.com provide innovative rapid facilities testing and world-class state-of-the-art biorisk safety protocols for all of your coronavirus needs. Call 1-800-281-9080 or visit us online at SGECOVIDsolutions.com.
Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the We Believe Global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at webelieve.global.
We're broadcasting live from Jackson, Mississippi, right here in the heart of the deep, deep South. You know, I used to think that down south the air was just a little bit cleaner and the grass was just a little bit greener. In Mississippi, we don't have 3 million people in the entire state. They got twice as many people in Chicago than we have in the whole state of Mississippi. You would think that we would find a way to take advantage of the vast resources that we have and pull ourselves off the bottom where we have been domiciled for the last 20, 30 years or more. No reason for Mississippi to be on the bottom other than people who don't want to deal with the diversity, don't want to provide opportunities for all of its citizens. For individuals who think that their survival and their enrichment depends upon your destruction. And until we fix that, we're never going to be able to change our destination. But I know we're going to do it. I know we're going to come together and celebrate our diversity. Now, Dr. Henderson, we talked about CRT, and we talked about Putin, we talked about racism and things of that nature, but African Americans have to shoulder some responsibility here. Now, how is it that we've had an African American president in Barack Obama? How is it that we have a vice president of the United States of America, the most powerful country in the world, in Kamala Harris? And today we have a Supreme Court justice that is being nominated to serve on the Supreme Court, where we already have one African American that currently sits on the Supreme Court. How is it that we have produced this kind of leadership and our conditions don't change?
Well, it's very clear, and a lot of you all don't seem to understand. Those individuals you mentioned were not put in office to serve black people. they were put in office to serve liberals and moderates and what I call the industrial complex, and the other group that's called the ruling 100. Barack Obama was and is a millionaire. His vice president worked her way up through the legal system. The black judge you're talking about has never represented any black interests. I think you're probably talking about Clarence Thomas. So he was a selected person put in a position of responsibility because his handlers, who is the vice president now, knew he was a conservative, white, interested individual that had a chance to go to a majority white school, and he didn't want to accept that he was black, and he said, I'm going to turn against black folks because I want to be part of the big house. And he maneuvered and got that position. And you don't hear very much about him. But now he is the only black person we have on the Supreme Court. Now you all pretend and allege that they had another one called Thurgood Marshall. But if you look at Thurgood Marshall, Thurgood was not a black man. He was a mulatto. He had more white in him than black. So if you have more white in you than black, you're white. So he was one of those liberal types that wanted to promote integration in America because he was not happy himself with his black alliances. Most of these kind of folks are the ones that white people put in charge, like Obama, Clarence Thomas, your vice president, and now this new potential justice, which will probably be a little different, where she will have more independence than some of the previous judges. But after she sits there for a while, she is going to be doing the same to keep her job. Very few.
Well, if we can't elevate people to positions of power and influence, and they don't demonstrate in that position that they are more about the elevation of the black man and the black race than serving the master, then we ought not put African Americans in key positions.
Well, you should not on a national level. I've been telling you for years, Mr. Socrates, black folks have to start on the local level. You can't change nothing on the top level. You cannot start working at the top of the building to build the foundation. You have to start on the local level, where you are with what you have, and black people got to start at the county level, the city level, and take over all the positions where they're in the majority. All the positions. That's what people do.
Wow.
And then train their own people for the leadership positions.
How is it in Jackson, Mississippi, we have an African-American dominated city council, and yet a black man, Richard's Disposal Service, has been a low bidder and provider for garbage collections in Mississippi, and the black council will not allow him to go to work.
Didn't I just tell you that everyone that's elected in these black positions are not promoting the interests of black people? Don't you understand that when you get a politician in office, or you get a preacher in a church, or you get a black businessman and he doesn't have enough money to do what he needs to do, he is going to be interested in getting financial and social support anywhere he can.
So we got a dilemma here. We got a dilemma. We can't promote people of color into positions of power and expect that they're going to represent the people who sent them. And we can't ask people of another race to represent our interests. We're in a quagmire. We don't have a plan forward. We don't articulate a strategy to correct that.
Well, I've been talking about this strategy for years, sir. You got to train your own people. You have to recruit them, train them, select them, and then put them in responsibility or responsible positions in the church, in politics, in education, and in industry.
I hear the terms hold people accountable all the time. But I don't know how you hold somebody accountable. Once they get in office, they seem to just do whatever they want to.
Well, they do because they don't have about 25% of the people voting for them to get in office. See, if you don't have anyone to challenge you and demand that you do anything, you don't have to do anything but get paid. The average black person and the average poor, low-class white person can't tell you who the city council person is, who is the head of the various city departments, who the police chief is, who is their supervisor, who is their judge, who is their state senator, who is their state representative. They don't know because only about 25% voted for those folks. And they only voted for them because someone told them or because that person is a member of one of their social groups or a college graduate that had affiliation with a fraternity or sorority, or maybe a church member if he had a big church.
Wow.
That's all it takes to get in positions of irresponsibility. And then we don't check on anybody. We don't demand they do anything. Many of those people that are elected in these positions have not read their job description. And you know the person that put them in office don't even know what they're supposed to do. And that's why they call the wrong people all the time when they have problems with potholes, with police abuse, with hoodlums in the neighborhood that's shooting at each other. They don't know who to call. And then they start demonstrating. So and that doesn't help any.
So you think we got to go back to square one and start training our elected officials?
You got to start where you are with what you have. And you can, since we don't have but 8 years to do it, you can start working with high school students, college students, middle-aged students that's in the middle school, and get these people trained. In 8 years, you can have new mayors in these towns, new members of supervisor, new city council people. All they have to do is be 21 years of age. We have those people out there, and they can be recruited and trained and put in those positions of responsibility in less than 8 years. But it must start in the church. You just can't allow anymore for a black man to wake up one night and he decides he's going to run for the city council or a county supervisor position, or he's going to be the city attorney, or he's going to be the city judge. And he has not talked to anyone, no accountability, and then you go, the 25% of you all put him in office. You get what you deserve. And black people can solve all of these problems if they stop looking for white people to solve them for them.
Well, white people seem to have a system in place where even the black elected officials are marching to the orders of white people that have put this system in place for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so they don't have to worry about us anymore. They have new leaders that they control that'll take care of their interests, and no one takes care of our interests.
That's right, because they own the new leaders. Anyone you own, you can control. Think about that. Anyone that loves you more than he loves himself, you can't do nothing with him.
You can't do a thing with him.
Not a thing.
Let me go back and explain to our viewers a little bit how critically important this discussion is. You know, in Jackson, Mississippi, Waste Management has had control over garbage collection for over 35 years. The mayor of Jackson, Mississippi sent out a request for a proposal on 2 separate occasions, and each time a provider was selected other than Waste Management to pick up garbage in the city of Jackson, an 85% African-American owned city, African-American populated city. Each time an African-American council voted down the provider that the mayor put forth. And we currently in Mississippi now, we have the lawsuits that are flying all over the country because the mayor is suing the city council is suing the mayor, Waste Management is suing the mayor. Waste Disposal Service is suing the mayor. The city is suing the council. Waste United System is suing the city. And so we have lost the ability to govern in an African-American populated city and county. So now we're asking the white man in his courtroom to make decisions that will affect the way things are being done in Jackson, Mississippi for years to come.
Now look at that. Look what you just said, Mr. Socrates. You say they're having a lot of problems economically, and then they're going to go to a white man to make a decision. You have 4 times more black judges than white judges in Hinds County, but all of those have recused themselves because they know the actors that you're talking about, so they are surrendering their responsibility.
New Cannabis Premium Dispensary is providing community health and wellness through CBD and Delta-8. Both CBD and Delta-8 provide an array of health benefits, aiding in appetite, sleep, anxiety, depression, chronic pain, and more. New Cannabis Premium Dispensary provides a variety of CBD and Delta-8 products, including gummies, candies, pre-rolls, pain creams, isolate drops, cartridge pens, and so much more. To learn more about New Cannabis products or to place an order, please call or text 415-465-9292 or visit us online at newcannabis.com and follow us on Instagram at newcannabisjackson.
We're back. We're broadcasting live from Jackson, Mississippi. We were talking about how the African-American elected officials in Hinds County and the city of Jackson have sued one another to the extent now that the courts are going to make the decision as to how the city operates and not the black elected officials. And Doc, you were saying that that is the way, that the problem is when you have to run to the white man to make the final decision and you got all of these black judges, and how did we skip all of them?
Well, they said, well, I know these petitioners. I know the city council people. We went to the same school. We're members of the same church. We belong to the same sororities and fraternities, so there might be a conflict of interest, so I'm going to yield to the man that is not part of my team, the very person that's always made the decision. And most people favor their own kind. Humans do it, and animals do it. They mostly favor their own kind.
I'm not sure I agree with that in our case, because if you are a black judge and the black community sent you down there to decide on what's equitable and what justice is in the black community, and you defer to a white conservative judge, I think you've done your community a great disservice and you ought not be in that position.
That is exactly correct. You have a constitutional right to uphold the Constitution, interpret the laws on the local, district, circuit court level, and on the state level if you're elected a judge. And in most cases, you can get around not doing your job unless there's a prevailing conflict of interest.
And it can't be a prevailing conflict of interest because black folk are not doing any business.
Exactly
and so
right.
if there's an economy is not in place, where can the conflict be? And I once had Governor Haley Barbour told me, I told him that I was concerned about a conflict of interest. He said, well, if it ain't no conflict, there ain't no interest. So you can't, in the world of economics, you can't separate those two, but you still have the ability to rule, judge, and decide fairly on what's right and wrong for your community. That just reminds me of back when the citizens turned everything over to Pontius Pilate and said, you make the decision on this Jew. The same thing here. Our black judges turned their decision over to Judge Dickerson, who is a conservative Republican that will rule in an 85% populated black city. Turn it over to him to make the decision.
So when the supporters of Jesus expected Jesus not to be killed, and his enemies got him, and his supporter says, I find no fault with this man. The people that didn't like Jesus start raising all kind of hell and shouting and threatening. And he said, I'm going to wash my hand of it. And they went out and killed him anyway.
Well, he offered up another character, I believe, in the Bible, Barabbas, or right. something like that was supposed to be a real bad actor, and they offered him up instead of Jesus. And what did the citizens do?
They say, well, we hate Jesus, so this man is a change agent. We don't want him around. He has the potential to be more powerful than our priests. We don't want him around, so they killed him. Killed him on the spot.
And we got to look at what's happening to ourselves here in Mississippi and around this country. We're killing ourselves on the spot. We're destroying the future of black children. You know, a justice system that does not function, and you cannot function if you don't hold up on your end of the bargain when we put you down there to be the judge and decide. You cannot abandon that responsibility. You have to be able to see through that and do what's right in the community.
Okay, now, you don't want to hear this, but when you get a judgeship, you don't want to be too controversial. You want to be able to stay in the position till you retire or die. And you're not going to make a prevailing decision in the interest of someone that the special interest groups don't want you to make a prevailing decision in their behalf. Judges don't have to do a lot, but stay in a moderate range, take care of the people that really keep them in office, and make sure they stay away from black folks and give them justice. You're not going to find that happening too much in America where you have these black judges. They're always going to prefer to the white people. Look how they are criticizing this black Supreme Court candidate about the child pornography cases. Most of those guys were white males, and they are alleging that she deferred on their sentences and gave them a low sentence. Those guys are usually well-connected. They usually have good resources and connections that can get them some of the best lawyers in town, and they usually get stiff sentences. But if you were caught and you don't have high-pressure lawyers in a child pornography case, you'll probably get 160 years without parole or even death penalty.
The judicial system is a real joke.
Exactly.
And we gotta look at that, but the only way you can fix the judicial system is have competent, courageous people that stand up to the task that the office requires.
Well, you're not going to find many of those. Look at the history of the Supreme Court judges, the state judges. See, political judges are social entities. They change laws based on social concerns. After many years of change coming into a community, they make it legal. Look at abortion. Look at discrimination. Look at non-liability cases where you can kill all the people you want if you make drugs or make cars or make airplanes. They can fall out of the sky every day. Cars can kill 100,000 people a year. Nobody going to be punished other than they pay a fine. And they will say, we have no responsibility here. The people bought the cars. The people made a choice of riding the airplanes. The people bought the drugs. But now if you say I killed a few, I'll go on and pay for it, but don't touch me otherwise.
Well, I think what Doc is saying as well, that we know, manufacturers know that there's an acceptable level of risk associated with any product that they have, that they already design and understand that if less than 1,000 people get killed in airplane crashes during the year, that's a great year. So that's an acceptable risk. And so you had the same thing back in the days of the discrimination on various products that we knew were defective, but they came in the marketplace anyway. And the government knew they were defective.
Well, the government has been enticed by the same industry to pass laws to give them non-liability. They have these non-liability clauses, so those guys knew what was going to happen to them because they paid the judges, paid the senators, paid the members in the legislature through contributions for their campaigns to sign laws they write themselves and give it to the senator's aide. They review it. They get people to support them with it, 2 or 3 other senators, 10 or 15 in the House, and they pass these laws, attach them to a major piece of legislation, and average Joe Blow don't even know anything about it.
And while corporations are allowed to not carry liability on products that they produce, then the legislature, so in their wisdom, put forth laws that mandate that you have liability insurance on a car that you only drive once a week, and it doesn't have a motor in it that will get it out of the city limits. But then when you get stopped at the road lights checking point and you don't have the liability insurance, then the car gets towed. Now you owe the towing company for the money of towing it. Now they take you to jail because you didn't have liability insurance, and you're caught up in the federal judicial system, and nothing good can come from that.
It's all about the money.
It's about the money.
When these legislators pass these laws and look out for these big industrial leaders, those companies have stuck. And for some reason, these legislators usually end up rich. Any person that gets in an elected position on the national level, he can go in dead poor. And if he can stay in 3 terms, he or she is likely to be a millionaire.
Wow.
Making $100,000 plus a year.
We got to get inside of this system that we have here. We got to change this system where it works for everybody. You know, we're getting ready to close our show this evening. We hope that you enjoyed some of the points that we're making, and we hope that you'll reach out to us and support us as we try to bring relevant information, thought-provoking information that will require the black community to wake up. You know, that's got to be the crying call. Wake up, black man. Wake up, black woman. We must get this done. Good evening. I'm Socrates Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. We believe Digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. On We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again.